Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Rahman Darmawan, and I will present for my second project, Sociolinguistic, for part one, a study on gender exclusive speech and style context, and register using academic literature, 2017 until 2026. Let's to the next slide. Topic 1, Gender exclusive speech. Topic 1, Step 1, Definition and Importance. Definition: Gender exclusive speech means using language features, words, or grammar structure that are used only by one gender in a community. Why it matters? These language patterns show clear cultural divisions. They reinforce local gender roles and show social ranks and power differences in a group. Media connection. In modern mass media, public figure use these gendered speech styles to show their identity to large audience. Topic 1, Step 1, Characteristic and Key Concept. For the characteristic, first, clear boundaries. Certain words or speech sounds are only used by one gender group. Second, community roles. These patterns are kept alive by strong social rules and traditional expectations. Third, identity signaling. It helps a person show their recognized gender role to the community. And the last, no overlap. It creates strict separation between male and female speech styles in traditional settings. And for the key concept, first, speech community, a group of people who share and enforce the same language rule. Second, gender roles, cultural rules about how men and women are expected to act and speak. Third, social hierarchies, power ranks in society that are shown through language roles. And the last, linguistic markers, specific words or grammar habits that show the gender of the speaker. Topic 1, Step 1, Theoretical Framework. First, main textbook, Janet Holmes 2013 and An Introduction to Sociolinguistic, 4th edition, London Routledge. Second, core theory, Holmes explained that gender speech variation directly show power relation in society. Third, the two-speech structure. Competitive structure. Men often use speech to compete, show power and control conversation. Cooperative structure. Women usually use speech to cooperate with close connection and support solidarity. Topic 1, Step 2 and 3. Presentation of example 1. Media shorts. This is a conversation transcript from NBC's TV show, The Tonight Show. The talk is between host Jimmy Fallon, male, and guest Kim Kardashian, female. Executive Jimmy Fallon said, "You gotta tell us, is it true? Tell us exactly what happened." And Kim Kardashian said, "Oh my god, literally, it was so crazy. I was like, totally, should I do this? It was just, a bit overwhelming." And for source info, NBC Tonight so broadcast achieved transcript from October 2021. Topic 1, Steps 4 and 5. Phenomenon and evidence. Example 1. Linguistic phenomenon. A female speaker using highly expressive and soft language features on a public television show. Evidence from the quote. First, intensifiers, words like literally and totally to emphasize feeling. Second, hedges or fillers. Soft words like and Third, emotional adjective, words like crazy and overwhelming. Social meaning, These features of soften the statement. They help the speaker avoid sounding too aggressive, making it easier to connect with the audience. For the steps 6 and 7, theory analysis and journal support, example 1. Applying the textbooks, Kim's speech fits Holmes' 20 and 13 theory of cooperative structure using the phrase "you know" invites the listener in and builds a friendly connection. Journal support, this analysis matches a study by M.S. Tupamahu 2017 Sociolinguistic Perspective of Gender Patterns on Social Media. Zahuri Journal for 14 to pp 43 until 51. Journal findings Tupamahu proves that these expressive soft markers are common female communication patterns. They are used in the public to reduce direct assertiveness. For the step 8, detailed interpretation, example 1, identity building, Kim uses these expressive words to build a friendly, modern feminine identity on TV. Power dynamics, there is an unequal pressure in the talk. The male host used commanding competitive language, you gotta tell us, to push the talk forward. Language defense, this female guest used soft fillers to protect herself from this pressure, allowing her to answer comfortably while staying popular with the viewers. Topic 1 Steps 2 and 3 Presentation of Example 2. Measure self-directed online content from social media. This is an Instagram live video broadcast by beauty creator Nike Tutorials. Is a quote, Nike Tutorials, oh dear, this set is gorgeous. It's so lovely. Look at that sweet glow. Search info, Instagram live public channels transcript from 2023. Step 4 and 5 Phenomenon and evidence in sample 2. Linguistic phenomenon using beauty focus, language, and emotional words to speak to an online audience. Evidence from the quote. Aesthetic markers using specific words like gorgeous, lovely, and sweet glow. Exclamatory opener starting with oh dear to show strong emotion. For social meaning, this speech style builds a shared space focused on beauty and feelings, making the online fans feel included and close to the creator. Step 6 and 7 Theory analysis and journal support for the second example. First, applying the textbooks according to Holmes 20 and 13, this speech shows a cooperative style since no men are interrupting. The speaker can freely use soft, connecting language to bond with her audience. For journal support, this aligns with a study by Benin Asgar 2026. The influence of gender on language use, a sociolinguistic exploration, International Journal of Literature and Languages, Fall 6 to pp 33 until 38. For journal findings, Asgar shows that emotional and aesthetic words are key tools for women to express their identity on digital platforms today. Step 8 Detailed interpretation for a second sample. Full control, unlike the show example, the speaker here has total control over her style. There is not host pushing her with aggressive question. For cultural values, using words like gorgeous and glow reflects the lifestyle values on the online beauty community. For digital branding, this shows how traditional female speech styles are adapted on social media to build a successful personal brand. Step 9, comparing both example. Similarities. Both speakers use cooperative speech styles, soft fillers, and high emotion words to stay close to the audience and avoid sounding aggressive. Differences. Example 1, TV show. The speaker faces pressure from an intense male host and use soft language to adapt. For the example 2, Instagram Live, the speaker is completely free and independent to choose her own style. Social result. These gender markers are not just about biological sex. They are tools used to actively perform social gender roles online. Step 10. Conclusion for topic 1. Theory still works. Classic theories about gender and speech, Holmes 20 and 13, still work perfectly for modern internet media. What digital changes, traditional female language habits are now used online to help women building strong communities. And for the big picture, mass media is a place where people actively perform who they are, adapting their speech to handle power and audience expectation. And now for second topic, style context and register. Step 1, definition and importance. For definition, style, how formal or casual a person chooses to speak in a situation. And register, specialized words and language styles used for specific jobs or situation. Second, characteristic. Speech changes easily based on the audience, the platform, the situation, and how fast the message needs to be sent. 3. Key concept. The three variables. Field, the topic or subject matter of the conversation. Tenor, the relationship and power rank between the speaker and the listener. And the mode, the channel used to talk like writing, speaking, or short video. Next, step 1, theoretical framework. Main textbook, main textbook, Ronald Wardow and Janet M. Fuller, 2015. An Introduction to Sociolinguistic, 7th edition, Wiley Blackwell. Second, Audience Designer Framework, Alan Bell's theory states that speakers change their language style mostly to satisfy their audience and feel closer to them. 3. Style shifting. Style changes are co-constructed by combining field, tenor, and mode to match the rules of different communication channels. Step 2 and 3. Presentation of example 1. Media source. An educational video on TikTok by famous science creator Hank Green. He is explaining difficult biology concept to young viewers. Is a quote Hank Green. Okay guys, so ATP is back is basically like the ultimate battery pack of your body. Think of it as rechargeable colony. It just snaps a postpad off and bam, energy. Search info TikTok public educational channels. Video transcript from 2023. Step 4 and 5. Phenomenon and evidence. Example 1. Linguistic phenomenon. Changing from a strict academic science language to a casual, everyday style to connect with young people. Evidence from the quick, simple metaphors, changing hard science words, ATP hydrolysis, into easy example like battery pack and rechargeable currency, casual words and sounds using friendly phrases like okay guys and low sound words like bam. Social meaning, this shift removes the boring classroom feeling, making the science teacher look like a fun friend. Step 6 and 7 Theory Analysis and Journal Support. Example 1. Applying the textbook. This is a perfect example of Alan Bell's audience design. Hank Green drops his professional scientist registered to match the age and habits of TikTok users. For journal support, this matches a study by TikTok case study authors 2023 analysis of style, context, and register in digital communication. Journal of Multidisciplinary Science for 4 pp 246 until 253. And for journal findings, this research shows that digital creators systematically use casual styles to help audience understand and feel connected. Step 8 Detailed interpretation. Example 1 Looking at field, tenor, and mode. For the field topic, complex cellular biology and biochemistry. For the tenor relationship, friendly and equal, the speaker acts like a peer, not a distant professor. And for the mode channel, a short TikTok video that requires fast, is exciting, and simple language. And linguistic impact, the creator gives up stiff school rules for casual talk, adapting traditional teaching to fit modern social media habits. For the topic 2, step 2 and 3, presentation of example 2, media source, comparing language text from two different places, an official government press conference versus a casual post on X Twitter. Isaac quotes formal media variant accelerating the nation's fiscal recovery, and casual media variant getting the economy back on track as soon as possible, guys. Source info digital transcript example collected by the Register Research Group 2022. And for the linguistic phenomenon, changing words and grammar style based entirely on the platform being used. Evidence from the next. Formal style use complex serious words, fiscal recovery, and rigid grammar. Casual style use active verbs getting the economy, text shortcut, ASAP, and friendly slang guys. Social meaning, the formal style builds professional respect and authority, while the casual style builds excitement and immediate connection. Topic 2 Steps 6 and 7 Theory Analysis and Journal Support. Example 2 Applying the textbook. This proves without 2015 theory that register changes based on the situation the same message is received to fit to different communication settings. Journal support this fits a study by the Register Research Group 2022, situating language register across age and modalities. Frontiers in Psychology for 13 article 96465A. In journal findings, the study proves that register and style are dynamically shaped by the platform and the urgency of the talk. Step 8 Detailed Interpretations. Example 2. Official authority. The formal option follows institutional rules and standard spelling to show that the speaker is professional and reliable. Breaking down was the casual option removes those strict words by using everyday words and shortcuts. It brings the message closer to regular people. And for the linguistic flexibility, this shows that successful public speakers must know how to shift their language style to match changing digital context. And step 9, critical comparison table. And for the dimension is words and jargon, grammar, structure, audience relationship, research, validation. And for the words and jargon is hard technical vocabulary and standard spelling. Example, fiscal recovery. Slang shortcuts, emotion, and friendly words. Example, accept guys. And the grammar structure, long, complex, and rigid sentence, is short, broken, and active conversational phrases. And the audience relationship, distant relationship that respect authority, close relationship that builds group connection. And for the research validation, register group 2022 style is shaped by platform urgency. TikTok study 2023 casual style optimized closeness. Next step 10 conclusion for topic 2. Smart style shifting register and style choices are calculated moves driven by audience designed to create real bonds with listener. And for the platform rules, the social media platform and channel choose how formal or casual speaker must be. And the digital literacy combining classic textbooks without But with modern research, 2017 until 2026 is necessary to understand how public identities are made online today. And for academic references and complete bibliography, foundational textbooks first Holmes G. 2013 An Introduction to Sociolinguistic 4th edition. London Routledge Theories and Gender Conversation. Second was the R. and Fuller G.M. 2015 An Introduction to Sociolinguistic 7th edition. Wiley Blackwell A Definition of Style and Register. Empirical Journal Articles 2017 until 2026. First, Asgar B. 2026, the influence of gender on language use, a sociolinguistic exploration, International Journal of Literature and Languages. For 6 to 33 until 38. Second, Tupamahu MS 2017 Sociolinguistic Perspective of Gender Patterns on Social Media. Tahuri Journal 14 to 43 until 51. And the third TikTok case study authors 2023 analysis of style context and register in digital communication. Journal of Multidisciplinary Science 2 for 246 until 253. And the last register research group 2022 situating with register across age and modalities frontiers in psychology 13 964658. Let's continue to part 2 case study. Topic 1, Gender exclusive speech in the workplace. Question 1, Definition of gender exclusive speech. A. Explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. Gender exclusive speech, often referred to in broader sociolinguistic context as androcentric or sexist language, refers to the use of linguistic forms that systematically exclude, minimize, or invisibilize one gender, most frequently woman. In English, this is heavily manifested through the use of generic masculine pronouns. Example, using he, him, or his to refer to a person whose gender unknown or irrelevant, and masculine Bless nouns example mankind and chairman. And for the B, analysis of why the phenomenons occur. This phenomenon occurs due to deep-seated historical and structural inequities embedded within language systems. Historical, the legal and social spheres were dominated by men, leading to the institutionalization of the masculine gender as the default or unmarked human standard, while the feminine became the market or specific variant. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. In communication, gender exclusive language confers an underlying premise that the prototypical or ideal actor in a given domain is male. Even when used with a generic intent, it psychological primes listeners to visualize a man, thereby positioning women as an afterthought or an exception to the rule. The sociolinguistic function and role in context. Sociolinguistically, gender exclusive speech function as a mechanism for reinforcing status hierarchies. It maintains patriarchal power structure by embedding them directly into the everyday workplace discourse, validating male presence while linguistically alienating non-male participants. Next, question second question, analysis of the manager's language. A. Explanation of the language phenomenon. The manager's utterance represent a textbook case of generic masculine pronominal use. Specifically, the process every employee must submit his report, and a good programmer should improve his coding skills. Employ the singular masculine possessive pronoun his to reference grammatical singular, but conceptually gender neutral antecedents every employee and a good programmer. B. Analysis of why the phenomenon occurs. The manager's language occurs due to the reliance on traditional prescriptive grammatical norms that dictated he as the grammatically correct generic pronoun for indefinite singular nouns in a technology sector context. This linguistic habit is further exac- exacerbated by the historic male domination of STEM fields, where the cognitive baseline for a programmer or employee has traditional been male. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. While the manager may intend the statement to be universal, the literal and psychological meaning conveyed to the teams is that the standard expected employee or programmer at the firm is male. It subtle signal that the professional identity of a tech expert is inherently tied to masculinity. D. Sociolinguistic function and role in context. In a specific corporate context, the manager's language serves to unconsciously take up the professional environment. It is established an exclusionary workplace culture that validates male employees' belonging while signaling to female employees that they occupy a peripheral position in the company's conceptual demographic. And the next, Third question, social and linguistic effects. For the A explanation of the linguistic phenomenon, the linguistic and social effect of the phenomenon involve cognitive framing and linguistic alienation. Language does not merely reflect reality in actively structure human perception and corporate behavior. B. Analysis of why the phenomenon occurs. According to the principle of linguistic relativity, the semantic choices available in a language shapes how its speaker feel the word. When masculine pronouns are used exclusively, main cognitive processing defaults to male imagery, making it significantly harder for individuals to subconsciously associate women with those roles. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. The continued use of such language sends a continuous implicit message that women are typical anomalies in tech position. This this creates a psychological chilling effect, conveying a lack of intentional inclusivity. D. Sociolinguistic function and role in context. First, linguistic affects it perpetuates semantic derogation and preserves and Rocentric blesses within corporate documentation and spoken discourses. Second, social or workplace of effects. It lower workplace belonging heightens importer syndrome among female staff contributes to the gender gap in tech requirement and reinforce the glass ceiling of linguistically separating women from position of professional competence. For the fourth question, alternative language forms. A. Explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. To counteract gender exclusive speech, speakers can adopt gender inclusive or gender neutral language. This involves linguistic substitutional strategies designed to avoid gender bias entirely. B. Analysis of why the phenomenon occurs. These alternatives occur as a consequence sociolinguistic shift to the make language more egalitarian, ensuring that the all individuals feel explicitly and addressed and valued regardless of gender identity. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. Using inclusive language conveys equity, modern professional standards, and respect for diversity. It demonstrates that the company actively recognizes and welcomes individuals of all genders into its operational framework. D. Sociolinguistic function and role in a context. Sociolinguistically, it democratize, democratize the workplace, actively dismantling linguistic patriarchy and fosters a psychological environment of safety and structural belonging. Five question, theoretical framework and literature support. Explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. The the academic validation of this case rests upon the intersection of androcentric language ideology and cognitive bias framing. First, textbooks theory. Janet Holmes in An Introduction to Sociolinguistics 2013 establishes that the generic masculine operates as a unmarked form which reflect historical male structural dominance. Second, journal reference. First, reference 1. An empirical study of Stout and Dasgupta 2011 in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology isolates and isolates the psychological effects of masculine generation on women's professional alienation. Third, journal reference 2. Cognitive research by Szczesny, Moser, and Wood 2016 in Frontiers in Psychology maps how gender exclusive language actively triggers male based mental representation in organizational environments. B. Analysis of why the phenomenon occur. The sociolinguistic friction occurs because language structure human cognitions rather than simply conveying neutral messages. According to Holmes' framework, the reliance on he or his persists due to historical prescriptive grammatical norms designed around a male-dominated social hierarchy. Furthermore, psycholinguistic data from Stout and Dasgupta and Szczesny et al. Demonstrate that when the human brain encounters masculine pronominal tokens like his, it automatically active male imagery rather than gender neutral concept. Therefore, the female employee's discomfort occurs because the manager's syntax constantly structured the prototypical programmer as male, forcing women to perform the extra cognitive work of mapping themselves on into an exclusionary pronoun. For the next C, meaning conveyed in the interaction. Synthesizing the theories proves that the interaction conveys a message of implicit marginalization. The managers pressing communicates that professional identity within this technology firms is fundamentally tethered to masculinity as set out and discussed. Finding highlight this interaction conveys a sense of systematic inclusion, signaling to female employees that their presence presence tech in the tech sector is perceived as an anomaly or an afterthought rather than the corporate standard. And for the D, sociolinguistic function and role in context. Sociolinguistically, these frameworks demonstrate that the manager's language function as a mechanism for reinforcing status hierarchies and linguistic gatekeeping. First, applying Holmes' theory, the discourse function to preserve the patriarchal status quo within the STEM sector. Second, based on Szczesny et al.'s findings, the process every employee is and a good programmer is function to reinforce the glass ceiling by cognitively separating women from roles of technically authority. And the third, ultimately, This literature proves that such a language functionally lowers workplace belonging and increases professional alienation, showing that the female employees' reactions are a direct response to structural exclusion embedded within the corporate discourse. Topic 1: Gender exclusive speech in the workplace. Recommended alternatives from: first, the singular they pronominal substitution. One, instead of: every employee must submit his report. Two, alternative: every employee must submit their report before Friday. Second, pluralization, restricting: one, instead of: a good programmer should improve his coding skills. Two, alternative: good programmers should improve their coding skills regularly. Third, omission or article replacement. One, alternative: every employee must submit a report before Friday. And the fourth, passive voice or imperative restructuring. One alternative: reports must be submitted before Friday. And the gender exclusive speech in workplace for theoretical framework and literature support. One, textbook theory, Holmes' sociolinguistic framework. In her foundational textbook, An Introduction to Sociolinguistic, Janet Holmes 2013 discusses how language reflects and reinforces social values, particularly regarding gender. Holmes explained that English is an androcentric language where the masculine is treated as the unmarked or default form. She argues that using terms like generic he or his is not politically neutral. Rather, it makes women invisible. Application to cast Holmes' framework directly accounts for why the female employees felt excluded. The manager choice of the unmarked his forced female employees to constantly perform the cognitive work of mapping themselves onto a masculine pronoun, reinforcing their lower social status within the company's hierarchy. The second journal reference one stood and Das Gupta 2011. And for and there are three: situation, findings, and application to case. And for the three journal references to Sydney, Moser, and Wood. And there are citation, findings, and application to case. And next, the second topic, linguistic density in educational discourse. First question, the definition of linguistic density. A. Explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. Linguistic density refers to the concentration of information content within a specific unit of language. In sociolinguistic and systematic functional linguistic, this is evaluated primarily through two metrics. One, lexical density, the ratio of content words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs to grammatical or function words, preposition, conjunction, pronunciation, pronouns, and determiners. Two, grammatical metaphor or nominalization, the process of turning action or qualities into abstract noun, which condenses complex clauses into single noun phrases. B. Analysis of why the phenomenon occurs. Linguistic density occurs as language adapts to meet highly specialized communicative needs in academic and scientific register, speaker and writer must package massive amount of complex data, historical consensus, and structural relation efficiently. Uh, Rather than unpacking every step linearly, high density language compresses entire process into single, specialized vocabulary structure. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. The essence language signals intentional authority, technical expertise, and academic rigor. When a speaker uses highly dense and language, they implicitly communicate that they are operating within the professional or scholarly register, signaling to the audience that the matter being discussed is nuanced and demands an advanced level of the main specific literacy. The sociolinguistic function and role in a context. Sociali- Sociolinguistically, linguistic density function as a register marker and a tool for a social stratification. It acts as an implicit gatekeeping mechanism. Mastery of high linguistic density designed membership within elite communities or practice such as academia, law, or medicine, distinguishing the expert from the layperson. The second question effects on communication and comprehension. A. Explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. The phenomenon of density directly regulates cognitive processing load. In spoken interaction, human working memory limited and structural packaging dictates how auditory language can be decoded. B. Analysis. And for the B, this occurs because high linguistic density forces the listener to unpack abstract, heavily modified noun phrases simultaneously in written text. A reader can pause and reread dense passages. However, in spoken communication, such as a lecture, language is ephemeral if the lexical density is too high. The listener's working memory becomes overloaded before they can extract the intended meaning, leading to comprehension failure. C. When the of a interaction excites the audience real-time processing threshold, the perceived meaning shift from educational interaction to cognitive exclusion. The audience receives the message that content is alien, overly complex, or beyond their current intellectual reach. And for the D, in an educational setting, the mismatch between a speaker linguistic density and the student's decoding capacity disrupts the scaffolding process instead of facilitating knowledge transfer. It solidifies an asymmetric power dynamic where the speaker holds the monopoly on specialized knowledge in other in inadvertently alienating the learners. The third question, comparative analysis of lecturer and lecturer A and lecturer B. A. To determine which lecturer utilizes a higher linguistic density. We evaluate the lexical to grammatical word ratio and the presence of complex nominal groups. B. The contrast occur because lecturer A use a colloquial, highly generalizes register, whereas lecturer B deliberately shifts into a specialist academic register characterized by advanced linguistic packaging. Let us break down the metric of both statements. First, lecturer A. Language is a system of communication. These sentences relies on a simple subject-verb complement structure. It contains a high proportion of basic structural elements such as the copula is and the preposition of and accessible vocabulary. Second, lecturer B. Language functions as a dynamic symbolic system facilitating the transmission and negotiation of meaning across diverse sociocultural contexts. The sentence contains an incredible dense accumulation of content words. It utilizes abstract nominalization and specialist adjective modifies dynamic symbolic system transmission and negotiation of meaning. The first social cultural context. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. Lecturer conveys an accessible introductory definition mean to establish an intimidating baseline for beginners. To lecturer B conveys a highly sophisticated socio-semiotic definition that attempts to capture the entire operational scope of language in a single sentence. D. Lecturer B used significantly higher linguistic density in the context of a classroom lecture. Lecturer B's sudden deployment of dense pack clause explain why students reported difficulty. The density of information per second exceeded the students' immediate auditory processing capacity for transforming an interactional moment into an obstacle. And fourth question, advantages and disadvantages of defense language. A. The utility of dense language depends entirely on the principle of contextual appropriateness. It is neither inherently good nor inherently bad. Efficacy is relative to the settings and the audience. B. The variance in utility occurs because different environments prioritize different communication goals. Professional research space require economy of space and maximum precision, while educational space require conceptual clarity and incremental cognitive building blocks. C. Meaning conveyed in the interaction. One. Using dense language among peers conveys efficiency and professional equality. Two. Using dense language with no vice can convey academic pretension, detachment, or a lack of pedagogical awareness. And D. The advantages and disadvantages for the linguistic or social contextual. For the linguistic, the advantages is precision eliminates ambiguity by using exact terminology. And for the disadvantages, opacity obscures the actor and explicit action through normalization. The second, consciousness packs complex multi-step theories into single process, and for the disadvantages, synthetic complexity increases structure errors in the processing. And for social or contextual advantages, the first is authority establishes professional credibility, and the second, community allows efficient shorthand communication between experts. And for the disadvantages, first, alienation creates an artificial barrier to entry for students. Second, ineffective pedagogy causes cognitive overload and limits retention. Next, question number five, theoretical framework and literature support. A. The analysis of the academic density class is validated by a triad of structural and cognitive frameworks. First, textbook theory MAK Halliday's Systemic Functional Linguistics (SFL) framework, which defines how written and scholarly register compress close into complex nominal groups via grammatical metaphors. Second journal reference 1, an empirical study by Tu, Van, and Thomas, 2013, in the Internet Journal of Language, Culture, and Society, which established the mathematical link between high lexical density and diminished readability. 3. Journal references 2. Corpus linguistic study by Bieber Gray and Pound 2011 in written communication, which demonstrate that advanced the academic register rely on non-phrasal comprehension rather than casual elaboration. B. This instructional failure occurs because of a mismatch between the medium of transmission, spoken speech, and the structural register chosen. According to Halliday's SFL frameworks, Lecturer B packed multiple clause work of informational into dense nominal phrases. Transmission and negotiation of meaning across diverse social cultural contexts. To Fan and Thomas prove that when context tokens are crowded together without functional word buffers, real-time auditory decoding plummets. Furthermore, Beavers et al. Demonstrate that this non-heavy compressed style in cognitively native to advanced print literature, not spoken lectures. The students struggle because lecturer B delivered an academic text structure orally, causing their working memories to overload before they could complete synthetic parsing. The integration of this framework proves that lecturer B's presentation unintentionally conveys cognitive exclusion, while lecturer B aims to deliver a true definition. The structural density transmit a meta message of elitism or pedagogical distance, causing students to interpret the discourse as an academic order rather than supporting teaching. D. Sociolinguistically, these theories prove that lecturers be register choice function as unconscious academic gatekeeping. First, applying Halliday's framework, lecturer B treats the classroom as an elite community of practice rather than an introductory learning space. Second, based on Bieber et al.'s findings, the sudden deployment of non-pressal compression functional as an social academic barrier that isolates beginners. Third, ultimately, the literature confirmed that high linguistic density in spoken lecturer function to create a structure asymmetry, validating why the students found lecturers B approach structurally unsuited for real-time lecture comprehension. And for the theoretical framework and literature support, and for one, textbook theory, Halliday Systematic Functional Linguistic SFL in his foundational textbook, An Introduction to Functional Grammar, M.A.K. Halliday, introduced the concept of lexical density and grammatical metaphor. Halliday posits that written and academic register achieve authority by compressing clause into complex nominal groups, non-phrase, instead of saying people communities communicate across different cultures. And academic register shifts grammatically to the transmission of meaning across diverse socio- sociocultural contexts. For the application to case, Holiday SFL directly accounts for why lecturers be explanation felt overwhelmingly dense. Lecturer B packed multiple close word of information into dense nominal phrases. According to Halliday, while this style is highly efficient for printed academic journals, it increases the processing difficulty exponentially when delivered orally to students. 2. Journal reference 1 to Fan and Thomas 2013. And there is situation, findings, and application to case. For the three journal references to Bieber Gray and Pon 2011, there are situation findings and application to case. Let's continue to the next page for the third topic, linguistic complexity in intentional discourse. Question number one, definition of linguistic complexity. For the A, explanation of the linguistic phenomenon. Linguistic complexity, specifically synthetic complexity, refers to the structural elaboration of language, characterized by the number and type of phrases and clause embedded within a sentence. In structural linguistics, it is measured by the degree of subordination, coordination, the length of production units such as T units or clauses, and the depth of hierarchical synthetic trees. And for the part B, syntactic complexity occurs when a speaker or writer needs to qualify statement, establish conditional relationship, or encode multiple layers of circumstantial information within single sentence boundary. In administrative and legal context, it is driven by a bureaucratic imperative to prevent ambiguity, establish precise criteria, and cover potential legal or cultural exception. For the part C, linguistic complexity conveys intentional formality, legal rigidity, and bureaucratic precision. It signals that an announcement is an official, non-negotiable policy directive bound by strict structural condition rather than a casual or friendly reminder. And the part D, sociolinguistically, complexity serves as a marker of the bureaucratic register. It reinforces intentional distance and asymmetric power dynamic between the intentional, the university administration, and the individual, the student, by using intricate synthetic structures. The institution project authoritative governance and shift the cognitive burden of compliance entirely into the reader. The second question, comparative analysis of version A and version B. The A to determine which version demonstrates great complexity, we evaluate the clause structures and the presence of syntactic embedding. B. The disparity occurs because version employs a minimally single clause structure, while version B utilizes structural elaboration to embed condition and prerequisites. Version A. Student must submit the form by Friday. Independent clause with a straightforward subject, modal, verb, object, adjunct, structure, subject, plus modal plus verb plus object plus adverbial time press. It features zero structural subordinate or qualification. Version B. Students who have completed the registration process and fulfilled all administrative requirements are required to submit the form before the specific deadline. This, uh, this is a complex sentence. The main subject, students, is separated from its main verb phrase are required by a long, coordinated relative clause who have completed and fulfilled. This configuration requires center embedding, which interrupts the core matrix clause. The next slide is still second question. For the C, first version conveys immediate behavioral urgency and clear actionable instruction. Second version B conveys conditional bureaucratic compliance, emphasizing the institutional prerequisites that must be met before submission is valid. D. Version B demonstrates significantly great complexity by opting for version B. The university website shifts from user-centered communication to administrative centered text. The center embedded relative clause forces the reader to hold the subject in their mind while processing two distinct prerequisite action before arriving at the actual command and explaining why students find it difficult to process. The third question, effects of synthetic complexity on understanding. A. The effect of synthetic complexity on understanding is rooted in working memory constraints and syntactic parsing strategies. B is analyze B when readers encounter a sentence, their brains parse it by seeking the core structural dependencies, primarily the subject and the verb. In highly complex sentences or embedded sentences, like version B, a substantial distance is introduced between the subject, students, and the verb are required. This forces the human parser to store the subject in its short term working memory while processing while intervening information leading to cognitive fatigue and higher risk of processing failure. C. When complexity impedes real-time parsing in the interactive meaning shift from informative transparency to bureaucratic obscurity, students perceive the text not as helpful, the directive, but as an confusing administrative barrier. D. In intentional settings, exercise synthetic complexity cause information asymmetry and lower compliance rates. When students cannot easily extract the who, what, and when from announcement, it can result in missed deadlines and administrative errors, inadvertently undermining the very purpose of the communication. Question number 4. Appropriateness of complex language. A. The deployment of complex language is governed by the sociolinguistic principle of register and genre appropriateness. Complex syntax is highly effective when the communicative goals require multi-layered qualification over rapid readability. B. Complex syntax is necessary when a text must survive legal scrutiny, account for intricate dependencies, or preserve advanced conceptual relationship that simple sentences would oversimplify. C. In an appropriate setting, it conveys expert meticulousness, legal durability, and intellectual depth. D. And there are appropriate context and inappropriate context. For the appropriate context, first, legal contracts and status, where every conditional clause, exception, and dependency must be legally binding and length. Second, academic research papers, where complex multivariable causal relationship and theoretical menses must be synthesized. Third, policy framework, where long-term institutional governance rules must remain comprehensive. And for the inappropriate context, first, public or emergency announcements, where information must be decoded instantly by a diverse non-specialist audience. Second, user interfaces and digital notices, where, where special contents and brief attention spans require high scannability. And the last, actionable student directives, where clear behavior compliance, example deadlines, is the primary objective. Question number 5. Theoretical framework and literature support. The A. The structural friction identified in this comparative case analysis is validated by a specialist triad of syntactic and cognitive processing frameworks. First, textbook theory. Edward Feigen's language structure and use 2014 outlines the register framework detailing how bureaucratic and academic register rely on structural causal elongation to maintain legal and institutional precision. Second journal reference 1, an empirical study by Palotti 2015 and applied linguistic isolates structural complexity showing how center embedded clauses multiply cognitive load during reading tasks. And third, journal references to a reading comprehension corpus study by Plakans and Bilki, 2016 in Journal of English for Academic Purpose maps how excessive distance between main subject and their corresponding matrix triggers semantic processing failures. B. Analyze of why the phenomenon occurs. This linguistic breakdown occurs because human working memory handles text linearly and structural configuration dictate how easily text is parsed. According to Feigen's frameworks, version B relies on a dense intentional register that favors embedded clauses of readability, parallels Pallott's empirical model explained that by inserting qualifying information directly inside the main sentence structure, version B creates structural center embedding. This forces the student's brain to hold the subject, every student, in cognitive suspense while parsing multiple nested dependent clauses. Blanket and Bilky demonstrate that when the spatial distance between the subject and its main verb is artificially stretched, the reader immediate working memory experiences a processing overload, forcing them to reread the sentence to extract basic cultural meaning. C. Integrating these frameworks demonstrates that while version B aims to convey thoroughness, its structural complexity projects a meta meaning of intentional alienation by selecting a high performal register over straightforward communication. The text signal that bureaucratic precision is more important than student accessibility. This gives the reader then the impression that university regulations are deliberately obscure and difficult to navigate. Sociolinguistically, these theories prove that version B's structural design acts as an inadvertent mechanism for linguistic gatekeeping and administrative asymmetry. First, I'm applying finite theory, the complex register function to insulate the institutional legally, prioritizing bureaucratic density over student inclusion. Second, based on Palotti's findings, the center's embedded syntax functions as a structural barrier that penalizes students with standard reading speeds, slowing down comprehension. Second, ultimately, this literature confirms that high structural complexity in students' handbooks creates systemic friction, validating why students report a distinct reference preference for the direct use friendly syntax of version A. For the theoretical framework and literature support, first, one textbook theory finance register framework. And his sociolinguistic analysis and foundational textbook description of language structure and use, Edward Finnegan emphasizes that linguistic variation correlates with situational register. Finnegan established that professional and administrative register often rely on tactical elaboration, complex structure to maintain an objective stance, project in intentional authority, and eliminate situational ambiguity. Application to case. Finnegan's frameworks explain that the university of use of version B is a natural reflex of the administrative register. The writers of version B prioritize formal institutional precision over communicative economy. However, because the situation demands quick user compliance rather than legal parsing, this register choice results in a functional mismatch. And two, journal reference one, Palotti, 2015, there are situation, findings, and application to case. Three, journal reference two, Plakans and Bilki, 2016, there are citation, findings, and application to case. Let's continue to the next page. Topic 4, language, style, and politeness in academic discourse. Question 1, definition of language style. A. Language style refers to the variation of speakers or writers' linguistic choices, such as vocabulary, syntax, phonology, and tone based on the social context of the interaction. Style is not fixed. Individuals exhibit style shifting as they adapt their language to suit different audiences, settings, topics, and purposes. B. Style shifting occurs because language is intrinsically relation. Speakers dynamically adjust their speech to manage social distance, express solidarity, or show respect. These choices are governed by situational variables such as the formality of the settings and the social characteristic of the participant. C. A chosen style conveys the speaker's perception of their relationship with the listener. It signals whether the speaker views the interaction as intimate and equal or formal and hierarchical. D. Sociolinguistic language style function as a tool for identity construction and relationship management. Operating within the social expected style demonstrates communicative competence and a shared understanding of cultural norms, while violating stylistic expectation can disrupt social harmony. Question number 2. Stylistic differences between the two messages. A. The two messages different primarily along the continuum of formality and politeness strategies, shifting from an intimate or casual style to a formal or consultative style. B. The structural differences arise from the student's initial failure and subsequent correction of the required register for an asymmetrical academic interaction. Message 1, casual style, incongruent with hierarchy. Message 2, formal style, congruent with hierarchy, polite and indirect. C. Message 1. Hey, Prof, what's up? I need your signature ASAP. This message utilizes highly informal lexical choice. Hey, what's up? A clip title Prof and an approved imperative demand. I need blah blah as soon as possible. This style conveys an assumption of peer level intimacy, casualness, and an entitlement to the professor's immediate time. Message 2. Good morning, Professor. I would like to request your signature on my academic form. Thank you for your assistance. This message uses formal greeting for the professor's full honorific title. Softened modal request. I would like to request and proactive gratitude conveys It conveys profound intentional respect, difference, and recognition of the professor's professional boundary. And for the D, message 1 function as a threat to the professor's social standing within the institutional by disregarding professional boundaries. Message 2 functions as a linguistically competent interaction that validates the structural hierarchy of academia, immediately reducing interpersonal friction. Question number 3, appropriateness of the second message. A. The appropriateness of the second message is determined by its alignment with the institutional norms of differential discourse and face preservation. B. Academic intersection interaction between students and faculty are characterized by an inherent power asymmetry P and social distance D. Because professor holds institutional authority over students, the social distance is wide. The second message acknowledges this distance, whereas the first message inappropriately attempts to collapse it. C. The second message communicates that the student understanding their social role as a learner seeking assistance from an institutional authority, expressing a professional work ethic. D. By using the second style, the student validates the professor negative phase, the desire to be free from imposition and treated with professional autonomy, and positive phase, the desire to be respected. This compliance with professional etiquette satisfies additional expectation, which explain the professor positive response. The next question number 4, influence of style on interpersonal relationship. A. Language style acts as a psychological barometer for interpersonal dynamics, regulating the levels of solidarity and difference between individual. B. According to communication and communication theory, individual adjust their communication styles to achieve desired social distance. Convergence matching styles foster solidarity while maintaining an expected formal style preserves professional boundaries. When a style is mismatched, it causes psychological friction. C. An appropriate style builds trust, rapport, and mutual respect. An appropriate style conveys rudeness, unprofessionalism, or arrogance, causing the recipient to become defensive. D. In a professional and academic environment, style establish additional credibility. A student who meters style shifting can build strong mentorships and networks. Conversely, a student who relies on inappropriate casual style risks damaging their professional reputation and encountering intentional pushback. The next question number 5, theoretical framework and literature support. 1. Textbook theory, Brown and Levinson's politeness theory. In their foundational sociolinguistic framework, Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson, 1987, argued that linguistic style choices are determined by three cross-cultural variables: power or P, distance or D, and the ranking of the imposition or R. When P and D are high, as they are between a student and a professor, speakers must use negative politeness strategies. indirect language, formal honorifics, and apologetic framing to mitigate the face-threatening act F or FTA of making a request. Application to case. Message 1. Complete. Ignore the P and D variables using a bolt-on record style that insults the professor face. Message 2. Perfectly utilizes negative politeness. I would like to request and formal titles to bridge the high power distance gap, resulting in a positive response. Second, journal reference number one. Economido Colgate Series 2011. There are citation, key finding, and application to case. The next number three, journal references. Journal reference two, Bisenbach Lucas 2007. There are citation, key findings, and application to case. For the fifth topic, context and semantic variation in classroom discourse. Question number one, definition of context in sociolinguistic. A. In sociolinguistic, context refers to the entire environment in which an utterance occurs. It encompasses not just the literal linguistic environment or context, but the situational, social, cultural, and historical circumstance surrounding the interaction. Context is the primary mechanism that assigns a definitive meaning to an utterance that might otherwise be structurally or semantically ambiguous. B. Context is crucial because language is inherently underdetermined, literally meaning alone rarely convey the speaker's is a communicative intent. To minimize cognitive effort and speed up speech production, human communication relies having along a shared background between interlocutors, allowing situational choose choose to fill in missing semantic details. C. Context determines whether a word is decoded literally or figuratively. In an unshared context, an utterance can carry conflicting meanings, simultaneously signaling different level of cultural generalization or subcultural alignment among the listener. D. Sociolinguistically, context serves as an interpretive filter. It acts as the boundary that dictates which linguistic registers, slang tokens, or behavioral norms are appropriate or recognizable within a specific community of practice, effectively regulating inclusion and exclusion. The next question number two, divergent meaning of the same expression. A. The word sick in this case to represent the phenomenon of semantic shift and slang polysemy. Specifically, it captures a semantic inversion where a word with a traditional negative literally meaning ill diseased is reappropriated within youth subcultures to denote a highly positive attribute, excellent, impressive. B. This divergence occurs because different listeners utilize different internal interpretive baselines. One, the literal baseline, relying on standard institutional semantic definition where sick denotes pathology or defect. 2. The subcultural baseline, relying on contemporary slang networks where the term operates as an intensifier of praise. C. 1. For the student interpreting it negatively, the utterance conveys that the project is flawed, poorly executed, or unhappily. And two, for the students interpreting it positively, the utterance conveys that the project is innovative, highly creative, or outstanding. D. The split interpretation function as a marker of linguistic divergence. It highlights the coexistence of multiple linguistic codes within a single classroom, exposing gaps in a peer group alignment and showing how subcultural vocabulary and can disrupt intentional academic discourse. For the next slide, question number three, contextual factors influencing interpretation. A. The variance in decoding the utterance is driven by specific variables within the social environment. These are classified as participant variables and situational domains. B. Interpretation changes because different participants filter language through their unique social backgrounds. In a diverse classroom, individuals do not share identical linguistic history. C. The intersection of these factors signal whether an audience member belongs to the same speech community as the speaker. It makes visible the invisible social identities present within the room. D. The primary contextual factors influencing this case include 1. Age and generation chrono-context. Youth slang evolves rapidly. Younger students are more likely to track the positive semantic shift of sick, while older students or the instructor may default to the traditional definition. 2. Subcultural alignment. Affiliation with specific subcultures. Examples: skate, hip hop, gaming, or online internet cultures directly expands a student's lexicon. And three, settings or domain, formal versus informal. A classroom representation is traditionally classified as a formal academic domain. Listeners who expect a formal register will naturally reject slang interpretation, defaulting to standard literal meanings. And the next slide, question number four, how context affects communication. A. Context function as the pragmatic governor of communication. It actively determines the success or failure of information transmission by shaping mutual comprehension. B. Communication requires shared cognitive framework. When a speaker deploys an utterance, they assume a certain level of mutual background knowledge, common ground. If the context is asymmetrical, meaning the speaker and listener are operating in different mental contexts, the communicative link breaks down, resulting in misinterpretation. C. When context successfully aligns, it creates a sense of shared identity and a group solidarity. When it misaligns, it conveys confusion and mutual alienation. D. Context determines communicative competence. It is established that knowing what word means in a dictionary is inefficient. A competent speaker must know when, where, and with whom to use it. Without contextual awareness, communication becomes prone to pragmatic failure, turning a moment of high praise into a confusing critique. The next slide is question number five, theoretical framework and literature support. One, textbook theory. Himes speaking model. In sociolinguistic textbook, Del Himes uh, 1974 introduced the ethnography of communication through the speaking model, which outlines the essential contextual components of any interaction. Key elements applicable here are S. Setting or scene, a formal university classroom presentation. P. Participant, a diverse student body and lecturer. E. Ends, informing the audience and achieving academic validation. And K. The tone of the speech which the speaker attempts to make enthusiastic but does so through casual slang. Setting academic presentation. Key casual slang 6 equals pragmatic misalignment. Application to case. Hymns model shows a clear conflict between setting formal presentation and key using the slang word seek. Because the setting demands a formal academic register, some participants filtered the word through that intentional lens, leading to a negative or confused interpretation, while others adapted to the casual key of the speaker. The next, number two, journal reference one, Tagliamonte and Dennis 2210. There are citation, key findings, and application to case. And the next, number three, journal reference number two, Malioga and Tomalin 2017. There are citation, key findings, and application to case. The sixth topic, register and code adaptation in medical discourse. Question number one, definition of register. A. Register refers to a functional language variety configured by the specific situational context in which it is used, unlike dialects which vary based on who the speaker is, the geographical or social background. Registers vary based on how language is being used. It is characterized by distinct selection of vocabulary, lexis, syntactic structures, and degrees of formality tailored to specific professionals, field social activities, or intentional settings. B. Register variation occurs because language must adapt to perform specialized social and cognitive function efficiently. Different environments require different communicative tools. Specialized field create technical register to maximize lexical precision, eliminate subjective ambiguity, and allow groups members to communicate complex ideas rapidly. C. Operating within a specific register conveys the speaker's social role, professional alignment, and situational awareness. It establishes whether the speaker is acting as an objective institutional agent, a technical specialist, or empathic peer. The sociolinguistically register acts as an index of situational domain. It defines the boundaries of specialized fields such as medicine, law, or aviation. It also serves a mechanism for group solidarity among professionals while simultaneously function as a social barrier that distinguishes experts from laypersons. The next slide is question number two. Rationalization of the doctor's strategic language variation. A. The doctor behavior demonstrate register shifting or intralingual translation. The doctor dynamically translates information from a high formal technical register into a consultative layer register to match the social configuration of the audience. B. The shift occurs because the doctor recognized that the communicative goals, social relationships, and cognitive baselines differ completely across the two settings. 1. The written medical report is an institutional artifact requiring clinical precision, legal accountability, and standardization for an audience of law medical expert. Two, the face-to-face dialogue with the family is an interpersonal interaction where the primary goals are immediate comprehension, psychological reassurance, and rapid consent. C. 1. The first statement exhibits symptoms of hypertension. Conveys objective detected scientific observation anchoring the doctor identity firmly within institutional authority. The second statement has high blood pressure. Conveys accessibility, shares humanity, and direct care, signaling that the doctor respects the family right to clear information. D. In this healthcare context, the register shift function to mitigate the inherent knowledge asymmetry between doctor and layperson by discarding exclusionary jargon when speaking to the family. The doctor balances the intentional power dynamic, making the family an active, informed participant in the healthcare process. The next slide is question number 3, factors influencing registered choice. A. Registered choice is never random. It is systematically governed by the situational parameters of the communicative event. B. Speakers process internalize sociolinguistic competence that allow them to assess situational variables and choose the most social appropriate linguistic variants. Misjudging these variables leads to communicative friction or social offense. C. The selection of an appropriate register communicates that the speaker respects the social norms of the settings and understands the need of their interlocutors. And D. The primary contextual factors influencing the doctor's choice include 1. The audience or participant relationship. Expert to expert to expert interaction comments a technical register. Expert to layperson interaction demands code adaptation. 2. The channel or mode of communication. Written administrative documentation favors heavy normalization and technical vocabulary, whereas spoken consultation favors casual clarity and common words. 3. The communicative purpose. Documenting legal medical facts requires objective accuracy. Pharmacological intervention, while counseling an anxious family requires immediate behavioral clarity, needs medication soon. The next slide is question number 4. Impact of register of communication effectiveness. A. The alignment or misalignment of register directly determines of communicative efficiency and functional accessibility. B. If a speaker uses a technical register with a non-expert audience, communication fails because the listener lacks the semantic frameworks required to decode the vocabulary. Conversely, If a professional use a overly casual register in a formal documentation, the text fails its structural requirement by introducing ambiguity and undermining institutional credibility. C. Matches register conveys clarity, psychological safety, and mutual understanding. Second, mismatches register conveys institutional coldness, intellectual arrogance, or a complete lack of pedagogical awareness. And the D. In critical domains like medicine, registered choice can be a matter of life or death. If the doctor had used the first register with the family, the high logical density and jargon, hypertension, pharmacological intervention could have triggered panic or confusion, causing a failure to administer medication. By shifting to the lay register, the doctor ensure high healthy literacy, guaranteeing that the family understanding and complies with the medical directive immediately. The next slide is question number 5, theoretical framework and literature support. 1. Textbook theory, Halliday's SFL framework, field, tenor, and mode. In systemic functional linguistics, MAK Halliday 1985 provides the definitive textbook framework for registers stating that context is realized through three variables. 1. Field, what is happening, the nature of social action. 2. Tenor, who is taking part, the role, relations, and statuses of the participant. 3. Mode, what part language is playing, the symbolic organization of the text, example, written versus spoken. The statement 1, field, medical, record to tenor, expert to expert, will become mode, written, or formal register. Statement 2, field, family update, become tenor, expert to layperson, become mode, or spoken or lay register. Application to case, Halliday's model directly explained the doctor stylistic adjustment. In the first statement, the tenor is expert to expert and the mode is written, yielding an elite medical register in the second statement. The tenor changes to an asymmetrical expert to layperson dynamic and the mode shift to spoken interaction, foreseeing a systematic recalibration of the register to main context appropriateness. And for the next slide is number 2, journal reference 1, Zetsen, 2010, general situation, key findings, and application to case. The next slide, number 3, journal references from Castro, King, and Skillinger. 207. Their situation, key findings, and application to case. We next to the seventh topic, gender stereotypes and essentialist language in the workplace. Question number 1, definition of linguistic and social stereotypes. A. In sociolinguistic, a social stereotype is a generalized, oversimplified cognitive schema regarding the traits, behavior, and roles of individuals belonging to a specific social category, such as gender, ethnicity, or age. A linguistic stereotype refers to their the fixed language characteristic associated with the group or the use of essentialist language generic linguistic structures that frame is historically conditioned social traits as inherent, biological, and universal realities. B. Stereotypes are cognitive shorthand. The human brain utilizes categorization to manage massive amounts of social data efficiently. However, within historical power structures, these cognitive shortcuts absorb cultural basis. They manifest in language because speakers rely on inherited cultural narrative to rationalize social divisions, translating structural gender law into natural behavior patterns. C. Essential statement. Essentially statement communicate that an individual's professional path, emotional capacity, and operational skill are biologically predetermined by their graphic category. It strips away personal agency, positioning group identity as an absolute ceiling for individual capability. D. Sociolinguistically, stereotypes function to maintain the status quo by encoding bias into everyday speech. They naturalize social inequalities, establishing standard behavioral expectations that penalize individuals who defy from their prescribed category. The next question number two, reflection and reinforcement through language. A language is the primary vehicle for transmitting stereotypes. This occurs through structural choices like generic assertions, lexical choices, and binary farming. For the B, the manager statement explicitly demonstrates his through generic plural subject women are and men are by omitting qualifiers such as some or tend to. The syntax structures the claim as a universal law of nature identical to saying birds fly. Generic plural subject plus copula or are plus adverb naturally equals inherent biological law. C. By pairing the generic subject with the adverb naturally, the manager shifts the argument from a social observation to an immutable biological truth. The interaction supply conveys that a man lacking institutional leadership or a woman with poor communication skills is fundamentally unnatural or deficient. D. This linguistic formulation functions as a tool of socialization. When authority figures use generic assertions, it reinforces ideological boundaries within the company. It implicitly the pressure employees to conform to these categories, signaling that women should remain supportive communicative roles while men are fast-tracked into executive leadership. For the next slide is question number three: consequences in professionals in professional environment. A. For the part A, the consequences of essentialist discourse involve cognitive framing, linguistic gatekeeping, and activation of stereotype trait. B. When essentialist language is normalized in corporate space, it alters that evaluation metric used by decision makers. Managers primed by these statements make biased decisions regarding hiring, promotion, and task distribution, filtering objective performance through a lens of gendered expectation. C. The continued tolerance of such language communicates to staff that the organization values demographic uniformity over individual merit. signaling that structural bias outweigh actual professional output. And for the D, one, organizational consequences. It creates a rigid corporate culture, lowering psychological safety and increasing turnover among employees who feel boxed in by outdated categories. 2. Career advancement. Consequences. It reinforces the glass ceiling by tracking women away from executive authority leadership and confining men to operational silos, directly undermining diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The next slide is question number 4. A. Reducing stereotypes requires a shift toward non-essentialism. The biasing language which replaces sweeping generalization with precise individual-focused linguistic structures. B. The linguistic shift occurs when speakers intentionally decouple professional competencies from biological categories, restructuring language to highlight individual agency, performance, and context-dependent behavior. C. Using the base language communicates objectivity, fairness, and modern commitment to meritocracy. It signals that the institution treats employees as distinct professionals rather than demographic caricatures. D. Sociolinguistic. It happens is Sociolinguistically, it reshapes the corporate register, dismantling historical gender barriers and opening paths for deserved leadership and collaborative styles. And there are recommended alternative language form. One, individualization or the gendering. First, instead of women are naturally better at communication. Second, alternative. Effective communication and strong leadership are individual competencies that depend on training, experience, and personal capability. 2. Contextualization and de-essentializing. First, instead of while men are naturally better at leadership. The second alternative, our team members display deserved strengths. For example, Alex excels at strategic direction, while Sarah demonstrates strong project coordination. And the next slide is question number 5, theoretical framework and literature support. 1. Textbook theory, Eckert and Connell, Genet's language and gender. In their prominent textbook Language and Gender, Penelope Eckert and Sally McConnell Jeanette 2013 explore how language constructs and perpetuates gender ideologies. They argue that gender is not a fixed biological essence, but a social practice, something people do rather than something they have. They note that essentialist language example claiming group is naturally a certain way mask the sociocultural force that funnel men and women into distinct roles, turning cultural expectation into perceived biological fact. And for the application to case, the manager's assertion that women are naturally better at communication and men at leadership is a prime example of what Eckert and Cornell Ginnett call essentialism in gender. The manager treats historically constructed workplace policies as natural truths, ignoring how corporate training, socialization, and systemic petting shape these skill sets. And the next slide is two journal reference one Gelman, Ware, and Kleinberg. 210. There were situation, key findings, and application to case. And for the last slide, our presentation is number 3, journal reference 2, Szczesny, Netter, and Sabin, 2018. There are situation, key finding, and application to case. I think that's all for my presentation for sociolinguistic for part 1 and part 2. And thank you, see you, goodbye. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.